IPAC Northwest Conference. This is Jill Riley, and today we are joined with the Reverend Mark Olsen. Mark, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you, Jill.
Well, Mark, we're here today to talk about a project that's relatively new that you and your wife, Doreen, were able to participate in this last October called Weaving Justice and Peace in a Wounded Land. And I would like for you just to talk a little bit about, first of all, the intent of this project, and then tell me a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to put it in the larger context of offerings that have been taking place and developing within the covenant over the last 25 years. And the category is what I would call immersive learning experiences or transformational experiences. And the first one was Sankofa, which was first celebrated 25 years this year of those experiences. And then Journey to Mosaic in different forms in different places around the country. Sankofa was primarily a white-black deep dive, and Journey to Mosaic was more multicultural. This particular one is more just focused on immersion into native indigenous culture, values, understandings, and life. And is to help people that are not familiar with it, like Doreen and I have been, still are, really pretty ignorant, but begin to experience what indigenous people, how they view the world, how they experience the world.
So when you say that you were in an immersive experience into the indigenous way of learning, what did that involve? Were you cooking together, community, other living together? What did it involve for you?
Well, the Woodleys live on a small farm, only a couple acres, near Yamhill, Oregon. It's northwest of Portland, or southwest of Portland, about an hour. It's called Elohe, and they have designed it to be something not only for them and a place where they live, but to be a place where they can welcome people who are interested in learning more about indigenous way of life, living, relationship with creation. And food was prepared by the hosts. There was a bunkhouse, pretty basic, sort of a room for men and a room for women. And then most of the sessions took place outside. And then we had exposure to their property and land.
Right. So what were the conversations about? What kind of topics were you guys able to cover during that time?
It was really interesting. I think it was one of these things that I sort of knew but didn't fully understand, and that is that in indigenous cultures, story is the main tool for teaching or the main vehicle for teaching. And so most of the time was spent listening to the stories of the leaders. And there were several leaders, the Woodleys, and each of them told their stories. There are Lenore Three Stars from Spokane, again, Jim Sakira from Vancouver, Washington. He's from Hawaii originally, so he's indigenous to Hawaii. And then the other person that was in the lead kind of role, but more of a host and facilitator and really sponsor of this was Dominique Gilliard, and he shared some too. It was mainly listening to story and what do we learn from people's stories? What can we gain in terms of appreciating people via their stories? And one of the things I think that Randy did some teaching on was that his contention is that there's an indigenous worldview and then a Western worldview that are very, very different from each other. The Western one rooted more in Greek dualism, which Christianity has really sort of bought into. And the other is more takes the world as it is, doesn't see a dualistic kind of a framework, doesn't put things in opposition to each other, which Greek dualism tends to do. But so it's a very different approach to the world. And so he did some teaching about that was really pretty helpful and interesting.
What was your largest takeaway from your conversations?
I would say okay, if I give you several.
Go for it.
One was what it means to listen to the land. That's a phrase that I've become familiar with. A lot of people have in the recent years, but it's like I'm not And at one point, we were told to go out and just be by ourselves, find a place, sit down, lay down, sand, walk around, do whatever, and just become very aware of what is around you. I ended up going out, found a place under a tree, and ended up deciding to lay down. And then I found, okay, I'm having trouble just laying flat, and it took me 5 minutes just to relax. It was surprising how hard it was, but I finally was able to do that. And it was just really, and my takeaway on it was, okay, the realization for me personally, I've been an observer of the land. Oh, that's a beautiful mountain. Wow, God's great.
Mhm.
That's a beautiful sky. God is great. And that sort of is the big takeaway that people have when we observe the land, observe nature, observe the skies. But listening to the land in this way, what does land have to? There's much more that the land can teach us other than simply God is great, which is sort of an evangelical theme song these
Mhm.
days. It's just we sing it over and over and over again, but there's more there. And so that was a big thing for me. How can I listen to the land, listen to creation, not just observe it
Yeah, yeah.
in a
What's
way
one
that,
other what's one other thing you brought away?
yeah, another thing for me was related to that would be the idea of the community of creation.
Mhm.
They're very particular, specific, intentional about talking about creation as a community, and we're a part of that community. And all of nature is, from water to plants and trees and animals and everything. It's a community, and I don't think I've really thought about my relationship to the creation in that kind of way. So I'm just like, well, okay, now trying to live into that. What does that mean? How do I? Where do you go with that? What else does it look like?
It sounds like it kind of broadened your scope of where you belong a little bit
Yeah, yeah,
wider.
and it's some ways that are sort of stretching. It's like,
Let me ask you a two-part question. The first one is, why do you think these immersive experiences are so important for us as a denomination to lean into?
well, I think that the two lead ones have been, first of all, the Sankofa and then Journey to Mosaic, and those came about over time as the denomination was becoming more diverse and more people of color. And there was a point in time where I think there was some confrontation with leadership saying, okay, we're here, but we're not here.
Mhm.
We're in the room, but we're in the back corner somewhere. If you want us here, we need to be at the table, not just that led to some pretty profound changes over a period of time. And and Sankofa was one of the manifestations of that. It really came out of the consultation on the cities in the early 1990s that took place and brought a bunch of people together. And it's helped more and more people get a sense for who each other we are and what we've experienced. They've broadened a lot of people's experiences, and a high percentage of people that are in leadership roles have been through Sankofa, and these are powerful experiences. They and sometimes they take us to places we don't really want to go.
What does this offer us in terms of enlarged understanding of people groups?
Helps you understand that there are different groups of people in this country that has so many different have had very different experiences.
Mhm.
Um, we talk about there's a commonality of being a resident, a citizen of this land. The experience of being a native person is very different from being a Scandinavian person, which is what I am. So it's the experience is different, but then also I think goes back to this worldview of how we see the world, and in a variety of ways. I mean, I've been trying to expand my own sense of how I experience the world.
Well, we will put links in our show notes of how to get a hold of more information for people that might be interested. And I just really appreciate you sharing about this. This is new to me. Well, my very best to you and Doreen, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jill.